I don't know about you, but if there's any lesson that the stock market has taught us in the last couple days, it's that you have to
always, guys, respect the pump.
And if you have no idea about the news that has really rocked the stock market world in the last few days, take a look at GameStop. As of this filming, I think it's somewhere at around $350 per share, which is up from something like $30 per share just a couple days ago. So it is way up, and just even a couple weeks ago, it was down towards $10 to $5 per share. So it has gone on this meteoric rise in just a couple days, and it's been nuts. By the time I release this video, it's probably going to be at $500, or maybe it'll be at $100, or maybe it'll be zero. I don't even know. It's so crazy right now. But remember, you just gotta
respect the pump.
But the news around GameStop has brought new attention to WallStreetBets, the infamous Reddit forum that is focused on super high risk, super high reward trades that either net you nothing or millions of dollars just off a few thousand, even a few hundred. It's just some crazy trades on there, a lot of memes too, a lot of really negative posts too. We'll just leave it at that. But this whole debacle got me thinking, can WallStreetBets really move a stock on its own just by concentrating the efforts of some portion of the page? But before I answer that question, just wanted to introduce myself. If you're new to the channel, my name's Jack Duffley. I'm a 23-year-old real estate investor and soon-to-be attorney. And on this channel, I cover a variety of topics as they relate to investing, the markets, and pretty much everything as it has to do with personal finance. So if you like that sort of content, be sure to have a look around the channel. And if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. But back to the question, there's two things that you really got to focus on if you're going to see if a particular group can move a stock. That is trade volume and also the number of people that can make a trade. So let's take a look at the first factor, that's volume. And when I say volume, there are kind of two types of trade volume to look at. One of them is trade volume, which is the number of shares that actually change hands in a given day. And then another is the actual dollar value of those shares. Both can be kind of difficult to track, or at least track down easily, since there's so many trades in a given day. We're talking about billions, I think trillions of dollars every day across the entire stock market. It is a lot of money that switches back and forth. And you can look at an individual company to see how many people are trading that stock in a given day. And often on highly volatile days, you'll see a big spike in trade volume as people look to buy in or sell out of the stock, or both, depending on how sharp these swings are in a given day. So I went ahead and looked at the GameStop trade volume from the last couple weeks, and it looks like it was hovering somewhere around 50 million shares per day, which is certainly a lot, seeing as though just a few weeks ago it was more like 6 million shares per day. And on January 22nd, it spiked violently up to around 190 million shares per day. It seems to have hovered around there since then, and it's probably going to keep hitting that for at least the next few days. Who knows, maybe the next few weeks or even a few months. There's super high trade volume in GameStop right now, and I believe it's been the most traded stock over the last couple days. So from January 21st to 22nd, we saw a boost of around $150 million in daily trade volume. We'll get back to that in just a second, but now let's look at WallStreetBets and the actual page and how many people are on it. First off, right now it's around 3 million people and climbing pretty quickly since it's getting a lot of national news attention right now. It has gotten some in the past though, but before this GameStop story went mainstream, it seems like the page had around 2 to 2.5 million people on it following it. So it's certainly a pretty big page and you got a lot of eyeballs on it. And I'm sure the vast majority of those people aren't really making trades, are just there for the memes and are just there to look at some of these insane trades, because really there is some insane stuff on there. But let's say the top 1% of WallStreetBets are sort of the diehards who actually do make all these trades, are the ones who post all these trades, and are the ones moving a lot of the money around within WallStreetBets. I'm treating it sort of like a fund in my head, even though it's definitely not a fund. It's just a forum where some people can post what they think about a stock. Maybe it's being used to pump stocks. I'm sure that's happened at times, people pumping stocks and then dumping by front running them, but it's hard to really track a lot of this down right now since there's so much on this forum. But as a wise man once said, if they are pumping,
the power of the pump always comes back to you if you respect the pump of other people.
I guess now would be a good time to mention that pump and dumps are illegal and that this video is not financial advice or legal advice for that matter. It's just for your entertainment purposes only. But anyways, if we just took 1% of the group of about 2.5 million people, that's 25,000 people at the top of WallStreetBets, we'll call it. The top that are actually making a lot of these big trades to start. Maybe they have a lot of people follow them after that, but we'll just say conservatively 1% of the people on WallStreetBets are the ones making the big trades. All right, so we have $150 million in added trade volume over one day, and then we have 25,000 people who allegedly would be making the trades. I'm sure they're not making all the trades, but we'll start there. This is definitely a cursory analysis, so don't take this as science, but it's just kind of getting a rough estimate to see the power of what WallStreetBets might have. I'll pull up my calculator here. We got 150 million divided by 25,000, which equals about 6,000 shares per person if they were doing all of the trade volume, which they're not, but we'll discount that in a second. So that's 6,000 shares, and we'll just go off the close price for the day, which was $65 per share. So that would mean that each person, if they were doing all of that added trade volume, that's about $390,000 per person. But of course, they're not doing all of the trade volume. I'm sure a large portion of this was selling and buying back and reselling, and you got sort of multiple duplicative transactions in a day. I'm sure there was plenty of that. But you also have plenty of other people pouring in. It's not as though traders, high-frequency traders, and pretty much the entire public, especially once it got national headlines, we're just going to ignore this huge run-up. So I'm sure at least half of it was probably other people selling out, or more people actually buying in from outside of WallStreetBets. So I'm just going to go ahead and divide this by 2, and then we're at $200,000 per person. Is that too unreasonable? Probably not, given the size of some of these trades that have been done on WallStreetBets, but maybe it is a little bit high. $195,000 is a lot of money, no matter which way you swing it, even on a YOLO trade. But I think it makes sense to divide this in half again. Maybe other people on WallStreetBets start piling in, bringing the average trade volume per person down, and also the greater public is getting involved more and more through the day. So I'll go ahead and divide it by 2 again, and now we're looking at about $100,000 per person, which is still quite high, $100,000 per person. But remember, this is out of a group of about 3 million people. So surely there are 25,000 people in there who have this kind of money to throw on a stupid trade. I shouldn't say stupid. I remember I have to.
Whatever pumps, you have to pay respect.
I'm sure a lot of the volume on the day, in the last few days really, has been part of this engineered short squeeze that they're going for, where they're trying to force short sellers out of there, since GameStop is a very highly shorted stock. And when you short a stock, the only way to close it is to actually buy the shares back and then give it back to the broker that they lent to you. So to close a short, you do have to buy the stock. And if you force short sellers to actually sell their stock because they just want to cut their losses, you're going to keep driving volume and demand for that stock up higher and higher. So I'm sure a lot of this was actually short sellers as well, driving up this volume. So I guess I could discount it again at 25% of that, we'll say, is short sellers. I don't know what it actually was. Now we're at $75,000 per person. And this is only assuming the top 1% of WallStreetBets is actually doing all of this trading. But I'm sure there are others who got involved. Again, this isn't an exact science, but I think it's pretty reasonable to say that 1% of the people in WallStreetBets could each muster up, on average, $75,000. I'm sure you have some who throw down a lot more than that, a lot who throw down a lot less. Averages out to $75,000 per person in one day. They could move a stock pretty easily. Well, maybe not easily, but with enough coordination, I think they could do it. That certainly would explain a lot of GameStop's rise, since that came seemingly out of nowhere. There wasn't any new news that triggered the event. It just seemed to be that enough people finally agreed and decided to go ahead. Maybe they didn't actually collude and develop a plan that would be required for the sort of malice required for pumping and getting SEC violations involved. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm not actually really involved with WallStreetBets anyways. I just see memes from it sometimes. But if you assume that this is actually the top 5% of WallStreetBets instead of the top 1%, divide that $75,000 by 5, and you end up with $14,000 per person. And that's really not that big in the grand scheme of things when we're talking about, that would be, 25 times, about 125,000 people. And this doesn't even take into account options trading, which can potentially drive up trade volume as well. When people buy a bunch of call options, for example, on a stock, a market maker might be sort of inclined to buy more of that stock to cover eventual options calls, or whoever's insuring that option. That could be a possibility as well. But whatever the case, my final conclusion is that it seems like WallStreetBets really could move a stock pretty significantly and pretty violently in one direction if they really wanted to. I think that's exactly what's happened with GameStop. It really has been WallStreetBets driving the ship as of now. We'll see what happens after that when people start cashing out. I'm sure short sellers will sell off, and then you're going to lose a lot of that volume. It's eventually going to run out of momentum, one would think, at least with any short-term trade, at least one that's very short-sighted. Unless all of these people are really planning on holding, maybe they are, I don't know, but it seems like it's kind of a YOLO trade for a lot of people. We'll see. I'm just speculating. There's no way of actually knowing what the future will hold. But despite its reputation, I do not think that WallStreetBets should be ignored. It has a lot of power now because of how big the page has gotten. What follows from here would be interesting to keep an eye on. Is the SEC actually going to get involved with trying to break up WallStreetBets, which would would be just kind of nuts. Or is there going to be some sort of regulation thrown on Reddit that it needs to moderate some of these posts a lot more frequently to try and prevent fraud or pump and dump issues and other SEC violations? That could be coming. I don't know how much moderation they already do. I'm sure they do a substantial amount, but it could be seeing increased scrutiny because of the impact that it's clearly had on the hedge fund industry and the investment firm industry. They're certainly not going to like getting thrown around by a bunch of people on a Reddit page, so we'll see what happens from there. Might there be some lobbying money coming in to trying to increase regulations on things like this? I don't know. Definitely seems like it has reasonable potential. We'll see if it actually happens. And either way, I'll be covering it. Now, depending on what the investment industry and regulators do, this could just be a blip on the radar in the grand history of investing, or it could be a catalyst towards a very different sort of dynamic over the next coming decades. I don't know what's really going to happen here. This is a very strange event and clearly seems like it's repeatable if enough people coordinate together, because this page is so concentrated with people who are at least are interested in investing, and there's enough of them who actually invest and show off their investments that you really could get a lot of money flowing in whatever direction that the leaders of the page want it to go. When I say leaders, kind of the people that people look up to or follow for better or for worse, not necessarily like they're colluding, but it's just like someone going to a town square or something and shouting, hey, do this thing because I think it's great, and then people just start following it. Is that really collusion? I don't think so. It might be a pump and dump scheme that we got to watch out for, but because of freedom of speech, you're generally allowed to say a lot of things, and that probably is okay. We'll see what happens. Whether you follow Wall Street Bets or not, please just invest responsibly. Don't invest things that you're not willing to lose a lot of value in the short term, because that could happen, especially when you're doing these crazy short-term trades. You could lose it all very quickly. Just make sure you understand the risks associated with any investment and talk to a licensed advisor if you really want to, and if you really want to understand risks if you don't yourself. Either way, if you like this video, definitely like it, since that would help the channel out a lot. And if you like this sort of content about investing, the markets, and pretty much everything as it has to do with personal finance, definitely subscribe, since I put out new videos every single week and wouldn't want you guys to miss out. And if you want to get involved with trading for whatever reason, then I have some free links down in the description below for free stocks from Webull and Robinhood. Also, M1 Finance is a bonus going on this month as well. So check those out. They're affiliate links, so it's a win-win if you end up signing up, and I'd appreciate that very much. But until next time,
a good night and let the pump be with you.